answer is energy independence. So we can say to China, India, Japan, and Europe, you have a problem. You had better figure out how you're going to defend the Straits of Hormuz because you need the oil, we don't. And that morning, we're going to be safer. And we're going to have a little burden sharing for real because they're going to have a real challenge. Now, we need to take this kind of attitude. We need an American president who defends American interests based on American values, following American institutions. When the Secretary of Defense said the other day, Leon Panetta, that international organizations could authorize the use of force and Congress didn't matter, I immediately said he should resign immediately. Let me be very clear about this. Leon Panetta is the Secretary of Defense of the United States. He is not the Secretary of Defense of the United Nations. And if he is confused about that, he needs to resign, because we need somebody whose only interest as Secretary of Defense is the United States of America. It's that straightforward. Now, here's the most exciting long-term possibility. The folks who've developed North Dakota estimate that if we were to develop American oil and gas, both on federal land and offshore, that over the lifetime of the younger people who are here, it would pay between $16 and $18 trillion in royalties to the government. Not billion, trillion. That would be enough that if we imposed discipline, and you have to impose, Congress will never voluntarily be disciplined. But when I was Speaker, we passed the Balanced Budget Act, and for 4 consecutive years, the only time in your lifetime, for 4 consecutive years, we balanced the budget. Now, is that clear? Now, if we were to go back and say we're going to do that, and the way you balance the budget is you shrink Obama's government to the amount of revenue coming in. You do not try to increase revenue to catch up with Obama's credit card. Now, if we're prepared to do that, then you could take all of the royalty money and you could put it into a debt retirement fund. And in the lifetime of the youngest people in this room, they would be in a country which, for all practical purposes, had no debt. Now, this matters at 2 levels. One is it means the Chinese would have no leverage because we would have paid off all the bonds. But the other is it's going to save an immense amount of money. I think, I just looked at this a few minutes ago, I think this year we're talking about interest payments on the federal debt of $415 billion. Think about that. I mean, it's almost, I think it's more than we pay for the Army and the Marine Corps and the Navy combined. $415 billion. And it's going to go up because this is a period of low interest rates. So we really have the opportunity in one decisive policy change to create more oil, become energy independent, lower the cost of gasoline, create American jobs, liberate ourselves from the Middle East, and pay down the national debt in one key policy. Last point I want to make. I get pushback from the president and some news media people. How did you pick $2.50? Well, that's a number we consulted with people in the oil industry who said that somewhere between $2 and $2.50, you have a big enough profit margin, you're going to guarantee exploration and development, and you'll be able to be energy independent. The truth is, we don't know, it's going to fluctuate. But here's what's fascinating. Take the president's citing of natural gas. We've had an 11% increase in natural gas production since 2008. The price has crashed to such a degree that if gasoline dropped the same as natural gas, it'd be $1.13 a gallon. So it wouldn't be $2.50, it'd be $1.13. Now, there are technical reasons. Gas is a more regional market, oil is an international market. Gas is a little bit cheaper to develop than oil, and so forth. So probably doesn't get to $1.13, easily could get to $1.50. But my argument is It's a question of direction. We know where Obama's going. Obama wants to go to $8, $9, $10 a gallon. That's what his Secretary of Energy said, and that's where they really want to go. Because that's the only way they justify solar power, and the only way they justify battery-operated cars. We want to go to somewhere below 250, because we want the millions of Americans who already own a car or truck to be able to afford to go to work, to afford to go to church, to afford to go on vacation, to afford to visit their children or their grandparents. And we want independent truckers to be able to stay in business. And we know that if you raise the price of fuel, you're going to raise the price of everything that's delivered by truck. So it's a major increase in cost. I think this is only one issue we're going to campaign with Obama, but I think this one is so vivid and so powerful. I just want to ask you a couple favors. I mean, this is a very exciting campaign. I can't raise the kind of Wall Street money that Mitt Romney raised $3 million at a night on Wall Street, which means the people who got the money from the bailout are now using your tax dollars to run ads to convince you to hire their guy so they can be protected in case they need more money. And I can't raise that kind of money. But we do have over 176,000 donors. And 95% of them have given less than $250. And the reason we're able to survive and operate is we use the internet so intensely. So I have a couple of requests. How many of you are on Facebook? If you would, go home and just put on your home page, Newt equals $2.50 a gallon gas. Okay? I mean, that one thing keeps spreading the message and keeps driving it home. Second, if you Twitter, go to #250gas. That's a site we're building and developing, and it helps, again, keep the momentum up. Third, if your friends say to you, okay, it's a nice slogan, but how would he really do it? Ask him to go to newt.org, and we have there a 30-minute speech I gave in which I step-by-step outline American energy policy. And I think they'll find that that's pretty convincing. Finally, if some of your friends say to you, how can I be more involved? If they go to newt.org, we have a place where you can give 1 gallon of Newt gas. That's $2.50. And if you get excited, you can give 10 gallons. That's $25. If you're really excited, you can give 100 gallons. That's $250. But every person we can get to sign up for $2.50 gives us another volunteer, another person we can contact by email, lowers the cost of campaigning, increases our reach across the country. And we've been adding 500 or 1,000 people a day. So I'm very excited, and it's going to continue to develop. And lastly, because the primary is coming up so fast, if you can email all of your friends and just say you're with Newt and Callista, really important primary, you hope they'll remember to vote, and we need their vote. That would really help a lot. When you look just in this one room, I'll bet you collectively you can reach 250,000 people. Just start thinking about how many people each one of you emails. It's a lot. So anyway, let me take a couple questions if that's all right. Yes, sir. His suggestion, I'll repeat for all of you, his suggestion was that I emphasize more on my legislative background, the fact that we did manage to pass 4 balanced budgets, we did pass welfare reform, 2 out of 3 people did go to work or go to school, We did pass the first tax cut in 16 years. We created 11 million new jobs in 4 years with Clinton and got unemployment down to 4.2%. His point was, we need somebody who can actually get it done, not just speak about it. And I'm the only candidate running who actually has helped design national campaigns, who's actually helped design national legislative strategies on this scale. And I think that does probably, I think it's a pretty good case, and I think that's a good advice. Yes. Yes. If she's willing, I am. That's it. Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker. Thanks for coming here for the question. Your criteria for foreign aid is, as we all know, we spend a lot of money that are taxed on foreign countries that absolutely despise.
The question is what my criteria be for foreign aid. I think that Rick Perry had a good idea, which was to start at zero and require each country to justify why we're helping them. Some countries you want to help because it's humanitarian. Haiti is such a basket case, although I would argue we should redesign our foreign aid program from the ground up. I think bureaucracies giving bureaucracies money is exactly the wrong signal to send most of these countries. I think charitable work ought to be done through charitable organizations, and ideally through religiously based charitable organizations, because you're trying to change people's entire way of being, not just give them money. I also think we'd have been much better off to have taken most of our economic aid and turned it into an investment tax credit and had American companies building factories and creating jobs, teaching people free enterprise, doing things for a profit, as opposed to, again, our government giving their government money, which just creates an entire politician bureaucracy focus. And finally, the truth is there's some places that we give money to because we get something for it. And it's really rent. We just don't call it rent because that doesn't seem good. But so I'd also be honest about the fact there are some places you want to, for example, you want to put a satellite tracking station in the middle of an ocean, and the only country in the area is a tiny island country. They probably get a surprisingly large aid program. Well, that's actually because they've allowed us to put our satellite tracking system there. And we ought to be honest about that. Yes, sir.
We talked about the poor economy, and that's just the result of government overspending. Actually spend our tax dollars on citizens and not non-citizens.
It's a good question. The question is, what could you do to spend the government money on citizens rather than have these big institutional bailouts? The truth is, if you took the amount of money they poured into the big banks and you would use them to allow people to write down their mortgages, you could have taken exactly the same number of dollars, saved millions of foreclosures, and the banks would have had the same effect, except it would have been coming from the bottom up, not coming from the top down. Giving the money to the big banks didn't help any normal American at all, because the banks just sat on the money. And it actually has extended the housing crisis by years. So that's a very useful insight on your part. I was always mildly surprised when Obama finally said he learned to his shock that the shovel-ready jobs weren't shovel-ready. And I thought, he had to truly be an academic and be totally out of touch with the reality of real life if he thought the bureaucracies had shovel-ready jobs. Because, of course, what they all do is they plan. And then when they get done planning, they have a meeting to talk about the next plan. And then they think about whether or not the plan's good enough. And then they have a conference to critique the plan that they've now rewritten 3 times. And you never get around to doing any real work. So I think your point's right. The other thing I'd say, though, is that there are 3 pillars to Reagan, or 4 pillars to Reagan's model. And Reagan's model created 16 million jobs in the 1980s. We took the same model and created 11 million jobs in 4 years in the late 1990s. One is tax cuts. And that's why if you go to newt.org, you'll see a very aggressive tax cut program, very specifically designed to create jobs. The second is deregulation. We need to repeal Obamacare. We need to repeal Dodd-Frank. We need to repeal Sarbanes-Oxley. If you did those, you would see this economy automatically start to work better, because there's this huge burden on top of the average American. Small businesses won't hire anybody because they don't have any idea what the health care costs are going to be. So, and Dodd-Frank is killing small banks, crippling small business, and driving down the price of housing. So these are real challenges. The third piece of the Reagan program was energy. And if you create enough energy, people don't remember, Reagan